with you today a little bit about Mother's Day. Mother's Day is for me, of course, one of the hardest days of the year, and I just know, just the build up to it and the emotion of it is tough. Not sure if this video just now started or not. Okay, I think we're on. But I just wanted to visit with you just a little bit today and share just some things, just some thoughts that I had about Mother's Day. I remember very clearly a lot of the things about my first Mother's Day after my daughter went to heaven. She died in February of 2009. And so Mother's Day was just a little bit, it was actually less than 3 months after she had died. And we went to church that day with my parents, my brother and sister-in-law and their kids. My brother's a missionary in Indonesia with Mission Aviation Fellowship. And they were home on furlough and they were going to be dedicating their girls that day. And so there really was no way around it. Felt like I had to go to church and be with them. And so I went, but it was tough. From the minute you walk in the door, people start saying, Happy Mother's Day, Happy Mother's Day, Happy Mother's Day. And, it wasn't happy, not at all. And when people say Happy Mother's Day, it feels like a command. It feels like an imperative, like they're telling you, you're supposed to have a Happy Mother's Day. And every person that said that, every time I heard those words, it actually felt like a physical blow to my body. And by the time I left that day, I felt incredibly battered and broken. So it was tough. It's been, this coming Mother's Day, this Sunday will be my 12th Mother's Day now, since my daughter Hannah went to heaven. And I'm happy to tell you that it has gotten much easier, much softer, much more gentle, as the years have gone by. Now, for myself personally, I'm able to focus more on the gratitude that I feel for having the privilege of being Hannah's mother and Bethany's mother. But I feel so bad for other mothers who are struggling through Mother's Day, especially early on. In those first several years, it's just so tough. And so I wanted to share today 10 things that might be helpful to you when Mother's Day is not happy. First of all, we just have to accept the fact that the day is going to be difficult. I mean, that seems really obvious, right? We know it's going to be difficult. But knowing it and accepting it, I think maybe are a little bit different. We can accept the fact that it's going to be a tough day. But just like every other day, it's just 24 hours. And at 24 hours is over, Mother's Day will be over and it will be behind us for another year. And so we know we can survive that. One thing that might help, because we know it's going to be such a tough day, is to pre-grieve that day. In these next few days leading up to Sunday, think about some way that you can maybe just do a little pre-grieving of that day. Go visit your child's grave. Spend some time, if you just need to have one of those really good cry days, do that. Do whatever might help in the days, in the time leading up to that day. Just allow yourself, schedule some space to pre-grieve this Mother's Day that's approaching. Number 2, remember that the anticipation of a difficult day, is often worse than the day itself. That's one thing that I figured out pretty early in my grief journey. That's not always true, but most of the time it's true. The anticipation is worse than the actual day. Sometimes, and I remember feeling this way myself, sometimes that anticipation can almost make you physically ill leading up to a day like that. A scripture that has really helped me with this one is Psalm 94, 18 and 19. It says, When my foot is slipping, your unfailing love, Lord, supported me. When my anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy. That anxiety just builds up in us as we approach these difficult days and we feel like our foot is slipping. Lord, we just need to trust in Him that He will carry us through these even difficult, really difficult days. Number 3, have a plan. Make a plan for the day itself. I can't stress this enough. Don't wait until the day arrives and then just be kind of swept into whatever activity is going on. Take some time before Sunday gets here and think about how you want to spend the day. Do you want to go to church or not? This year that's kind of been taken out of our hands a little bit. We'll talk about that in a minute. Do you want to have a fancy meal, or do you just want to just have something very simple? Do you want to visit your child's grave on that day? Maybe you want to visit your own mother if she's still living. Whatever it is that you want to do, just exerting a little bit of control over the situation may help you deal with this. Making a plan will make you feel maybe a little bit less at the mercy of this difficult day. I'm a planner by nature, and so that really does help. 4, once you've thought through your plan, be sure to communicate it to the people around you, to your family and friends. Don't assume that they're going to know what you need, because they won't. I think a lot of times that people can read my mind. They can't. Most people, they're not going to have any idea what you need. So be sure to communicate to them what you need that day. I mean, it's Mother's Day. It's your day, right? So you should be able to dictate what happens that day. 5, don't feel like you have to go to church on Mother's Day. Again, this year that's kind of been taken out of our hands. In many states, churches are not open to go to anyway. In Arkansas, this is the first Sunday when some of the churches are opening up again. So depending on where you live, you may have the option to go to church on a Mother's Day. Our church, even though in Arkansas they've opened it up where we can have church, our church has chosen not to meet that day. So for some people, that decision has been taken away. But in a normal year, a lot of times we feel like we have to go to church on Mother's Day, or we feel like, the social expectation or the family expectation is that we go to church on that day. I'm normally not one to recommend skipping church, but hey, if you want to skip church on Mother's Day, it is fine. Seeing other mothers sitting around with their intact families can be so painful. Hearing everybody, like I said, when you walk in the door, telling you to have a happy Mother's Day is hard to deal with. The sermon on Mother's Day always seems to focus on the joys of motherhood, and you may not be there right now. It's okay to skip church on Mother's Day. 6, if you do want to go to church on Mother's Day, by all means do that if you think that it's would be comforting to you. Like I said, I did go to church on my first Mother's Day. It was very, very difficult for me, and I didn't go for several years after that. One of the reasons that it was difficult for me, especially that first one, obviously, for all the obvious reasons, but when church was over, I wanted to get out immediately. I had held my emotion in as best I could for as long as I could, and I needed to get out of there. Many of you have been to a retreat and you've met my husband, and you know what a talker he is. Well, he stood around and talked to people after church. And I was so angry at him because I just wanted to get out of there. And I couldn't because he wanted to stay and talk. But you know what? If I had communicated to him beforehand and said, hey, when church is over, I need to get out of there, he would have said, absolutely, okay, let's do that. But I didn't communicate it to him. So he didn't know. He didn't know what I needed that day. Would have saved us both a lot of heartache if I had expressed my needs ahead of time. All right, number 7, remember that there's nothing wrong with a good cry, or several, if that's what it takes to get through the day. Tears are a gift from God. Tears, we hear people sometimes saying, I just cry still every day, and I just hate it when I break down. You know what? Tears are not the enemy. Tears are okay. Tears are a natural part of grieving. Okay, so don't feel bad about tears. Number 8, realize that you are not alone as a grieving mom. I know that there are far more of us than I ever realized that there were. Weren't your eyes opened up after you lost your child to how many of us there actually are? You think about Mary, the mother of Jesus, and how her heart was broken when her son died, that horrendous death on the cross. So you're not alone. We're in good company. Number 9, look for a gift from God at some point during the day. You know, that first Mother's Day, I've referred to it a couple times already, how terribly painful it was. Not only did we sit through church and then wait for my husband to stop talking to all the people afterwards, we went out to eat afterwards at a public restaurant. And I was so barely holding it together by this time. And my brother over dinner told me about a Facebook post. He asked me, he said, "Did you see what Hannah posted on her Facebook page just about a month before she was diagnosed with cancer?" And I said, "No, I didn't." And he told me what it said. It said, "This world has nothing for me. I will live for him." Well, you can imagine, any control that I had left by that point was completely annihilated by that time that he said those things. Said that, told me about that post. And so I just completely lost it in this public restaurant. But it was okay. Because what a gift from God that was to hear those words from Hannah that day, and to know that even before she was diagnosed with cancer, she was already holding to this life loosely. This world has nothing for me. I will live for him. Heaven had everything for her, even though this world did not. So keep your eyes and your heart open. God just might have a special gift for you, a special Mother's Day gift for you this year. In fact, why not ask him for one? Just say, "Lord, I really need something from you today to encourage me on this difficult day." And I bet if your eyes are open, you'll be able to see it. All right, number 10. Remember that just because your child now lives in heaven does not make you any less of a mother. Nothing can change the fact that you are your child's mother. At the beginning of the book of Job, Job loses his 10 children along with his health and all of his worldly possessions. At the end of the story, Job receives double of all he had lost during his time of trial. He got 14,000 sheep to replace the 7,000 he had lost. He got 6,000 camels to replace the 3,000 he had lost. And he got 1,000 oxen and donkeys to replace the 500 he had lost. But there's one exception. Previously, Job had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And when all of his things were restored, God once again gave him 7 sons and 3 daughters. Why didn't he receive double the number of children that he had? He did. He still had those 10 children in heaven. And so when he received the 10 more, he did receive double. Those 10 children that he had before were just living in heaven instead of on earth. So now he had 10 in heaven, 10 on earth, and one day they would all be together eternally. And so that's a really comforting thought. Last thing I want to share with you is just kind of a little story. A couple of years ago now, several years ago now, we had the opportunity to visit a rather large church in Little Rock, where we set up a table about the While We're Waiting ministry and kind of passed out numbers and information to people that were there. And we spent some time visiting with a pastor of that church who had lost his wife to cancer a few years before. He was very interested in While We're Waiting and the fact that its outreach was specifically just to parents that had lost children. He said that in his opinion, the loss of a child is a very unique type of loss, something different from any other. And as such, it does need to be addressed differently than any other type of grief. And of course, that's something we all know, right, as bereaved parents. But then he went on to say something that really stuck with me. He said, "In fact, the bond between a parent and child is so strong. That is why I believe God chose to use that relationship to demonstrate his love for us. When he gave up his own son, Jesus, to die on the cross for our sins, he was showing the highest form of love. It's worth saying again. I'm going to repeat what I just said because I want you to catch it. The bond between a parent and a child is so strong. That is why God chose to use that relationship to demonstrate the magnitude of his love for us. When he gave up his own son, Jesus, to die on the cross to redeem us from our sin, he was illustrating the highest form of love. Until that pastor said that, I had never really thought about it that way before. But wow, it really makes that gift of God's son just that much more meaningful. And it makes me that much more grateful for it. John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." You know, our children, if they knew him, they have everlasting life, and we will see them in heaven. And even though Mother's Day here on earth is hard and painful, you know, one day all of these things will be made right in heaven. And so we have so much to look forward to. As my friend Joy Hart Young, who is listening, because I can see that she has checked in, she loves to say, the best is yet to come. And, you know, even though this is going to be a tough weekend for so many of us, we can rest in knowing that the best is yet to come. And so I'm grateful for that. I want you to know I'll be praying for all of you, all of us moms in this group this weekend as we miss our children. We miss them every day, all day, but we miss them especially on holidays like this. So I'll be praying for you all. Love you, appreciate you, look forward to, I'm so glad I've had the opportunity to meet many of you. Look forward to meeting many more of you one day. And thank you very much. Love you guys. Bye-bye.